What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Edgar. So, you feel like you're not making any progress. As we take on new projects or try to learn new skills, we often go into it with this expectation of where we want to end up or how good we want to get. And in the beginning, that endpoint feels exciting, and so we're naturally excited to get going and working on it. You know, we begin investing all of this time and energy into this particular thing until we hit a slump. We don't see the progress we were hoping for, so we start to get discouraged. We start to question our ability to even achieve the thing, and we ask ourselves if it's even worth the effort. Does this sound familiar to you? Let me know that in the comments. Anyway, when we start something new, it's easy to get caught up in how slow the progress is. It's not hard to see that we still have a long way to go, but oftentimes it's nearly impossible to see how far we've already come. And there are a few reasons why this might be happening. First and foremost, I want to talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect. So if you've never heard of it, the Dunning-Kruger effect is essentially this fallacy where in the beginning when you start doing something new, you feel like you're really good at it. But the more you learn, you start to realize how much more you have to learn. Like you realize how much you actually suck, basically. It's kind of funny how that works because it's a little counterintuitive, wherein the more you learn, the more you realize how ignorant you are. And in the beginning, this can feel like you're on a downward slope because you kind of are. You know, like you're at the top of this hill, you're feeling like you're great. And then as you learn more things, then you start to realize that you're really not as good as you thought and you're actually probably suck. But that's okay because as that pretty little visual I had on the screen just now shows, eventually that starts to reverse and you start to feel good about your skills again. But it takes time. Another reason why you may feel like you're not making any progress is because we tend to think of progress as a straight line with a positive slope, right? But as the Dunning-Kruger graph showed, the reality is that progress has a lot of dips and valleys. And while that is generally a positive slope while you're in the middle of it, it doesn't always feel that way because there are dips, right? And sometimes we find ourselves in the middle of one of these dips, and because people have a natural tendency to just be more negative, we tend to focus a lot on this and we feel like we're actually getting worse instead of getting better. But the truth is that with progress, you're often improving, and then you realize you need to learn something else and your confidence kind of dips. And so that's like a dip in the progress. But then you learn that again and you end up even better than you were before. Okay, a third reason why you may feel like you're not making any progress is because you're simply just not good enough yet. At least for the progress that you want to see. Progress is difficult and learning takes time, so you just got to stick with it in order to see the results. But okay, enough talk about why you're not making progress, because the reality is you're all here to figure out how you can change that. Plus, what I really want to talk about are 5 steps that you can take today to start seeing your progress more consistently and in a more positive light. But real quick, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit that like button so I know you want to see more videos like this. Also, if there's something specific you'd like me to talk about, I do have a content request form in the description, so check that out and let me know. Okay, so the first step you can take today to start seeing some more progress is actually track your progress. I know that's not a revolutionary idea, but I mean, you can't measure what you don't track. And I mean that you need to hyperfixate on the numbers, because trust me, that can do more harm than good, but you need to track where you are so that you can see your overall growth. Now, as I mentioned earlier, progress comes with dips, and it can even come with plateaus where you don't make progress for a while. But if you look at the big picture, it often has a positive trajectory. But in order to be able to see this, you need to have a record of where you were and where you are. And the great thing is this is super easy to do because you can just use a calendar or a checklist to mark off achievements. Basically, all you really need is something that you can glance at and quickly realize how much things have changed from where you started. Let me give you a quick personal example. So recently, I had a couple of videos that didn't perform quite as well as I had hoped. And that was very discouraging. But as I look back on my videos, like the first few videos did horrible, and my more recent videos have been averaging well over 100 views, which, yeah, I know isn't amazing compared to some of these other big YouTubers, but that's progress for me. But because I had been in this little slump where I was getting less traction on my videos, it was very difficult to see that in general my videos were doing better. I had made progress, but I wouldn't have known if I hadn't been tracking it. Okay, the second step you can take is to reflect on your progress more regularly. Now, I know this sounds similar to the first one, but that's because they're directly related to each other. Now, tracking your progress can only tell you so much, right? The numbers tell one side of the story. The other side of the story is why you've been making progress. And so in order to do this, you need to actually take time to think and acknowledge the progress you made and figure out what has led to that progress. I'm a big fan of doing this while journaling because then you have a record of it and you can always look back on it and figure out where you were before and what you can do to improve in the future, which is really the reason to do this. To get from this level to this level, I had to learn ABC. So now to get from this level to the next one, I have to learn DEF. And on top of that, giving yourself time to reflect on the progress you've made also positions it in a way that's more positive and forces you to focus on that, which leads me directly into my next step, which is celebrate the small wins. Now, you all know what this means. I don't really need to explain it, but by celebrating the small wins, you're essentially rewarding yourself for the progress you've made, no matter how small, which again forces you to acknowledge said progress. But the real kicker here is that it also provides encouragement so that you can keep going. Obviously, as we've already mentioned, progress is hard, but when you know that there's a small reward attached to that small victory, then you're more likely to stick with it. Man, these steps are flowing smoothly because, again, that leads me into the next step, which is stay consistent. For the most part, progress has a direct correlation with time. You learn more with time, you get better with time, you see more results with time. But the key is to stay consistent throughout that time. Anything in life that's worth doing is probably going to take way longer than you ever expected, but you have to keep going because it's going to be well worth it. Danko actually has this awesome quote that says, "The real challenge is not starting, but continuing." Keep pushing forward no matter how small the progress seems. And I think that sums it up beautifully. By the way, I actually have an entire video where I summarize the lessons that I learned from Dan Koh's content, so check it out if you're interested. Great stuff. Okay, the fifth and final step you can take today to start seeing your progress more consistently is remember that your progress is about you. You know, when you're reflecting on your progress, the only person you should be comparing yourself to is the old you. The only person you should be trying to impress is the current you. When it comes to progress, it doesn't make sense to look to external sources for validation or points of reference. Only you know where you started. Only you know the work you've put in. Only you know how far you've come. So it stands to reason that only you can determine the amount of progress or lack thereof you've made. Honestly, there's just some things in life that are meant for us and us only. You know, that there has to be some level of selfishness in the things that we do. If you want to hear my thoughts on why I think it's good to be selfish sometimes, then you're in luck because I have an entire video on the subject. So consider checking that out next. But with that, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.